Um, so now we've kind of learned all of the basics of graphing lines. So that's going to lead us into slope-intercept form. Okay, because now we know how to calculate slope. We know how to find the intercepts of a line, right? We know how to graph a line using like a table. So now I'm going to teach you slope-intercept form because it actually makes graphing lines and calculating these things a lot easier. It makes it a lot more straightforward, right? So I want to use this equation again that we just used, x minus 2y equals 6, where we had the x and the y intercept calculated. We have the slope calculated already. Okay, so we actually know all of the key things about this line. Okay, and I'm going to rewrite this to solve for y. So we did this a long time ago. This was called literal equations. I think I did this in week 3. So if you need a review, it's there in week 3. But we're not really solving for y, right? We're not saying y equals a number. We're rewriting the equation in terms of y, right? And this is where it's going to start looking like functions. Okay, so if I want to solve for y, that means I want to get y by itself on one side. So I need to move the x. So 6 minus x, or you can say negative x plus 6. Okay. And then I need to divide both sides by 2. Something to remember, we're dividing both sides. That means I have to divide this whole side of negative x plus 6 divided by 2. I can't just divide one, just x or just 6. It's the whole side. Okay. So that crosses out. I just get left with 1y. Negative x, if you remember, there's technically actually a 1, right? We just don't write them. Negative 1x we can distribute fractions. 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. Okay? And then negative 1 over negative 2 is just positive 1/2 times x plus negative 3. Or if you want to change it to subtraction, you can. Either way is right. Okay, but let's look at this. You see this number 1/2? What is 1/2 equal to? 1/2 is the slope, right? So the slope is right here. And how about negative 3? Do you remember what negative 3 was? If we look here, negative 3 is equal to the y value of the y-intercept. Okay, so what we just did is called the slope-intercept form. So if you solve any equation with an x and a y in this way, then the number in front of the x, it's labeled m, is the slope, and this number here, the b, is the y-intercept. But what's really nice about that is once you know slope and y-intercept, you can graph any equation. It's super easy. You don't have to solve the points or anything. So I already know 1 point, right? 1 point is 0, negative 3, because I know the y-intercept is negative 3, which means my first point lies right here on negative 3. And I know the slope is 1 over 2. So if I want to graph from 1 point and find the next point, you just think of it as directions. Okay, my starting point is here, negative 3, and the directions tell you to go up 1, right? You rise 1 because it's positive. So I go up 1, and then I turn and I go right. I go in a positive direction, 2. And that leaves me right there. And you can actually keep going if you want. You go up 1, to the right 2, up 1, to the right 2, and I've graphed my line. So this is the original equation that they gave us, but I used the slope-intercept form to graph it. Okay, and does it look the same as the graph here? It does. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's say it's already given to you. We'll just do a few. Right, so if you remember, we already know the slope. This is the slope. And this, it's positive. This is the y-intercept. So right away, we already have the first point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The first point, the line is going to cross the y-axis at positive 7. Okay, and then my slope is -3 over 5. So that means, thinking of it as directions, I go down 3 because it's negative, right? 1, 2, so down 3. Right, and then positive 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be around here. And there we go. I've graphed my line. Right, super easy. I have one point already given, and using the slope, I can find the next point. Because right, the slope tells you the trend. It tells you how to, the rise over run of how to get from one point to another point. Okay, let's do another one. And just make sure you pay attention, right? This slope is negative. Does this look like a negative slope line? It does, right? So pay attention to that. Maybe you have a negative slope and then you draw it and your line ends up looking like a positive slope. You might want to recheck how you did your rise and your run. You know, you might have just forgotten to go left or right or something like that. Okay, so we'll do just a few in this slope-intercept form. Okay, so our y-intercept is 2. And then from here, I would go up 3, 1, 2, 3, to the right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go, graph my line. Right, this line is 3/4 x plus 2. A lot of times you'll label your lines, especially if you start having lots of lines on the same graph, then the label helps you know which line you're referring to. Okay, and it's a positive slope. My line is positive, so looks good. But as you see how quick and easy that is, right? I don't have to do a whole table, of values to try and figure out points. They give me such key information here that I can just graph it in less than a minute. Okay, so here, don't get confused if you just see a whole number, because remember slope is a fraction. You can always put any whole number over 1 and make it a fraction, right? Because -4 divided by 1 is what? -4, right? Pay attention to the sign. If it's subtraction, that means our y-intercept is -3, okay? So make sure you pay attention to that. And then, oh darn, I made my slope negative. I ran out of room. Okay, so then I go down 4 because it's -4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, down 4, and then to the right 1. Okay, that one is really important, because if what I noticed a lot of students was they'll just see the -4 and they'll be like down 4, and then they think that's the next point, but that one, you know, shifts your line over. So really important that you remember that. Okay. All right, so that slope-intercept form, it makes it way faster to graph. Now that you know what intercepts are and slope is, you can use this form. And